Which Kobe was better, in your opinion, 8 or 24?
This ain't an easy one because they were both phenomenal.
For sure.
But number 8 was more phenomenal. The argument is always when an athlete's career is divided into two, one of the greatest of all times like Kobe, which half was better? When he was younger and more athletically gifted and more ferocious and more attacking and more aggressive, or when he got older and wiser and had a more well-rounded game and all that kind of stuff, more mature? And I always go with the young, hungry guy, the guy who just attacked, the guy whose physical gifts were such that your jaw would drop, that you couldn't believe what you were watching. Muhammad Ali had his greatest victories post-exile in his second career, Foreman and Frazier. But when, the Sonny Liston Muhammad Ali, that dude was the best who ever did it. Michael Jordan in his second three-peat was a more well-rounded player, had a better jump shot, the fadeaway, all that stuff. But the first three, you know what kind of numbers Michael Jordan was putting up? You could not stop. He was an attack animal, and that was Kobe. Kobe was a savage as number 8. Yes, he was playing on the same team as Shaq, so he had to defer as much as it was possible for Kobe in order to win championships. No, he didn't win finals MVPs because you had the big guy in the middle, as great as Gasol was. He wasn't Shaquille O'Neal. So he wasn't the lead guy. He was 1A. He wasn't 1 on that first three-peat, but he was the best overall version of himself. Not overall, not as well-rounded, but the highest peak Kobe was number 8. Plus, that's the guy I just like watching the best. He was something different. That's the closest to a prime Jordan.
Well, once again, Max Kellerman makes both arguments, trying to leave nothing for anybody else to say, but I'll try my best by going with
I learned that technique
24.
from you in the A block today.
Actually, I take my positions, and I'm very clear about how I feel. Nobody knows. Nobody would ever accuse me of dancing around issues. You could give Fred Astaire lessons. Just stop it.
We could see that Aaron Rodgers' arm wasn't good enough, but what we really learned about was Cam Newton.
I'll let you talk. You got more to say? You got more to say?
I'll let you
have a second to yourself.
The thing you're accusing me of now, you did 5 minutes ago.
You do it every day. Take a damn position and leave something else to somebody else. That's all I'm asking. Here's the deal.
I took
Number 24. Number
8.
24 is where I'm going with it. And it has nothing to do with who's better or worse. It's who I prefer. I prefer the guy that took on the challenge of having to produce without Shaq. I recognize the fact that the guy scored 81 when he wore number 8. But I'm thinking about the fact that when he wore number 24 and he had to produce after Shaquille O'Neal left, his first season, he had 10-plus games where he dropped over 50 in one season. I'm thinking about the league MVP. I'm thinking about the 2 NBA finals. I'm thinking about the pressure that he had to show up and respond to because he was perceived as being the individual that got rid of Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant big man of our lifetime. I'm thinking about the dude that demanded he wanted to be traded. I'm thinking about the dude that went on my radio show back then and said, I'd rather play on the planet Pluto than remain in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform because he had felt betrayed by the organization, which ultimately forced Mitch Kupchak and those boys to go out there and pull off the heist of the decade by getting Pau Gasol for Kwame Brown. I'm thinking about that dude that had to play multiple positions. I'm thinking about that dude that had to elevate himself into being a leader instead of just a scorer. I'm thinking about that guy that sat up there and everybody was talking about you ain't going to do anything without Shaquille O'Neal. It's about here and now. It's about what you got to do, and you got to show and prove because everything is on you. And I'm also looking at a guy that did something that the Lakers in the first three-peat never did, and that's beat the Boston Celtics for an NBA championship. The Los Angeles Lakers didn't have that luxury because Boston wasn't good enough to get there. They beat the Indiana Pacers. They beat AI and the 76ers. They beat Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin, Richard Jefferson, and the New Jersey Nets. But they weren't able to go up against the hated, heated nemesis that is the Boston Celtics for NBA lore. All of those things are things that I prefer. I can't take anything away from the young line that we saw on the come-up. But the maturation process that ultimately showed its head, that was number 24, which is why I love that number because it's all day. And that's what Kobe Bryant was about, particularly after the departure of Shaquille O'Neal. He knew that he had to be that dude.
See, what are you scared of? You had plenty to say. What are you worried about? And take your point. You had plenty to say, Stephen A. It's okay. It's going to be all right.
Hey,
by the way, that Kwame Brown trade.
But go ahead.
Don't forget that Kwame Brown trade included Marc Gasol. That was a win-win. That trade was a win-win. Like Memphis, everyone's like, oh, they robbed them. No, Memphis came off in that trade too. It was right time for the Lakers to grab Gasol.
Yeah, but Gasol elevated,
and they got
Max,
stuff back.
You'll agree with this. Gasol came on later. Like at that time when the Lakers were making their run, Gasol wasn't that dude. Now ultimately you won later on. You know it was a win-win later on because of what Gasol matured into. But during that 3-year period after the acquisition of Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol wasn't relevant at that particular moment in time.
Of course, but that's what I'm saying. That's why it was a win-win, because Memphis wasn't about to win a championship. So they got a great building block for the future. And meantime, the Lakers got a piece to put them over the top. And of course, as you mentioned, Kobe, the mature Kobe, could take a guy like Pau Gasol, who's a great player, and win championships as the MVP. What I'm saying is, when he was number 8, let's not let Shaquille O'Neal obscure his greatness. I mean, I don't think he does, but sometimes it's easy to say, well, he wasn't even the best player on the team. The way Kobe describes playing with Shaq, he's like, what if Jordan got to the league and Wilt Chamberlain was there? Right? Well, yeah, they'd three-peat too, but all of a sudden it's like, damn, there's not a lot of touches to go around. Hey, Mike, maybe you want to feed the big guys sometimes. And I think Kobe always bristled at the idea that he had to do that, and somehow Shaq's presence didn't really let you see all he could do. Of course, by the time he got Gasol and Shaq wasn't there, I don't think physically he was quite as quick, quite as springy as he was in the first three-peat, where he was... That was a force of nature.
You don't have to think about what Kobe may have felt. He said it publicly. That's why he wanted life without Shaq.